In this video, we're going to be forming ratios into fractions, into fraction form, and then we're going to be deciding whether those ratios form a proportion. Remember that in order to be a proportion, we want our simplified ratios to be equivalent, which means the same. So let's go ahead and we'll use our examples to help us. So in this first example, we have that 7 inches in 9 hours is our first ratio, and 42 inches in 54 hours is our second ratio. So if we develop our ratio as inches per hour, then our first ratio would be 7 out of 9, so 7 inches in 9 hours. And our second ratio would be 42 inches in 54 hours. So now we've written our ratios in fraction form, and we're ready to simplify them to see if they form a proportion. So if we look at our first fraction, 7 over 9, we want to know, will anything go into that? And sadly, 1 is the only number they have in common, which means that 7 over 9 is the simplified fraction there. However, if we look at 42 over 54, we see that we can use a 7, or rather a 6, to reduce those. So here we see that a 6 will go into 54 9 times, and then a 6 will go into 42 7 times, which will give us a simplified fraction of 7 over 9. Then, when we compare our two simplified fractions, we say that they are equivalent, which tells us that our two ratios are proportional. Let's take a look at our next example. Here, we have 440 calories in 4 servings and 300 calories in 3 servings. Why don't you try this problem on your own? Push pause and try the problem. Then when you're done, push play and see if you're right. So if we write our first portion in fraction form, we would have 440 calories over 4 servings. And for our second ratio, we would have 300 calories in 3 servings. So when we go to reduce these, if we look at our first ratio, 440 over 4, we can see that a 4 will go into this. 4 will go into itself 1 time, and into 440 110 times, giving us a reduced fraction of 110 over 1. If we look at our second ratio, we see that a 3 will go into both of those. 3 goes into itself 1 time and will go into 300 100 times, giving us a reduced fraction of 100 over 1. When we compare our two reduced fractions, we see that they are not equivalent, which tells us that our two ratios are not proportional.